Well, hi and welcome to the Hillsong Creative Pastor Masterclass. My name is Cass Langton and I am the Global Worship and Creative Pastor here at Hillsong Church. You know, one of my honours is that I have a couple of great friends around the world who are what I refer to as creative geniuses. They stir up the creativity that God has put in them in a way that is exemplary and exceptional. And it is my honour to interview them today. And so we are going to have a conversation with the very lovely Jenn Johnson from Redding in California. And so why don't you put your hands together and welcome her with me today. Jenn Johnson, you are altogether lovely. You're a dear friend from way back. Our relationship started sharing heart-to-heart conversations in a random cafe in Wahroonga in Sydney. And from that point in time, we have had sleepovers, retreated together, shared some of the most beautiful God moments and exceptional moments. I love your kids and your family, but the thing I love most about you is that you can't help but make life beautiful, whether it's a meal or a friendship, a family or the spaces that you inhabit. You are what I refer to as the queen of hospitality. I tell everybody that the way you are is that you're the kind of person who makes everybody feel welcome all the time. You cook the greatest chocolate cake I have ever eaten, and you make pancakes to die for. Your fire pit at home is like a confessional. You are a busy mother of 5. You are prolific in the worship space. You laugh a lot and you cry a lot. You appreciate a good coffee and you are the mother of the bride in 10 days' time. Yes, this is you. Does this sound about right?
No wonder I'm crazy.
Yeah. You have adopted 2 children and made them your very own. And I'm going to put 15 minutes on the clock and I've got some questions and we're going to have fun. I'm going to shut up and you're going to actually talk and I cannot wait.
And I'm just going to cry.
Okay, so hold on. My first question, which has nothing to do with my questions, is how are you?
The overall answer is so good and so thankful, but exhausted and so emotional with just very tender. And I'm so thankful for the presence of God and the grace of God. Every morning, I just feel like God is shouting over me, don't grow weary in doing good. Don't grow weary in doing good. And so I'm very good, but whoa, lots going on.
I feel like maybe you've defined the season that everybody has come out of. I don't think I've ever heard so many people say, I just feel exhausted and tired, and how do I keep going?
Yeah,
so
I know, and no one's faking it. Like I have cried over Bethel Music this week. I'm not a big crier unless it's Jesus or like it's a big deal. And man, I've lost it. I've just lost it so many times. Like, help me, God. I am weak. I don't think I've ever felt more weak in all my life than this past year, this week especially, and just my dependence on God and my dependence on encounters with God. I laid on the floor a couple weeks ago during a worship extended, it was like a worship prayer set, and I just laid on the floor in an encounter with God where I felt like layers of years were peeled off of me, and just making sure to get in the presence because it's wild out there.
Yes, it is. It is crazy times, right? Yeah. I think the hope is that we'll all come through this season not smelling like smoke, eh? Like that we'll come out of the fire refined but not burnt.
Yes, absolutely.
So that's it for free. Now I'm going to start on the real ones. I want to talk about obscurity. Because for you, like I've been to your home. You live in the middle of nowhere. Like you are a tiny plane flight from San Francisco to get anywhere. Redding is absolutely beautiful, but it's obscure. And somehow Jesus uses you and where you're from for his glory. So what have you learned about him as a result of being hidden or him finding you in an obscure place?
Man, I grew up in a small town and I moved to a slightly bigger town, but I definitely know this well. And I think that, the story that I always think of is, David just minding his own business, tending lions and bears. He wasn't looking for a kingdom. He wasn't looking for a crown. He was just being faithful with his father's business. And I just think that that's a story of my life. Gonna cry always. it's the goodness of God. It is that song. It is that message of my life of I've just been faithful with whatever God's putting in front of me to the best of my ability to say yes. And, the obscurity and it doesn't make sense of it all. I just can't, math doesn't add up, but God is so crazy to get you where you need to be if you just are faithful to do what he's asked you to do. So I just think that my life's a testimony of that. And who knows what's ahead in the future, but man, it's been a ride.
Have you ever felt tempted to move to create more opportunity for yourself? Like, I think it's so interesting that you live in the middle of nowhere and yet God continues to use you. And I hear lots of people say, I need to position myself better.
Yeah, totally. I think that story of just doing it and not looking for it is so important, because God has been so faithful, and the temptation's always there. What can I do to do, and it doesn't start out in a bad heart, but all of a sudden you can find yourself grabbing for, what's next, or how can I get there, or climb this ladder. And I've just watched God single-handedly get us wherever we've needed to go if we're just faithful to him. And if we didn't get there, it was because we didn't need to be there. And so just the hustle and the stress, we just don't need it, because God's so faithful.
It sounds like you've learned to trust.
Yes.
Like, properly. And
yeah, I haven't learned to balance my schedule yet, because it's flipping. It's a juggle. I just feel like there's no balance. It's just a juggle. Every day, balls in the air, balls falling. It's a juggle.
Okay, so how do you deal with that? Like, because you've actually willingly chosen that. Like, you chose to adopt 2 children. Like, that has to put a whole lot more balls in the air.
Yes, and it was not something that was even in our heart to do. Like, we weren't, just like praying. Like, it was out of nowhere that God spoke to us. And it was actually after Darlene Check was with us, and she had spoken the word Hanani, which is her album title, Here I Am, Send Me. And she was telling me that, it really, in the Greek or Hebrew study she had been doing, it had meant my answer is yes before you even ask.
Right. And
that rocked me. And I felt like I got pregnant in the spirit with this word of, like, I don't want to be comfortable, God. I don't want to be ever like, okay, I can coast now, like all the things you've given me, like, it's right here. I'll give it all up, like, on a dime. You tell me. And so right shortly after that, like, out of the blue, God spoke to us. We were watching a show and God spoke to us, and they had adopted a baby on the show, and I just start bawling. And I turned to Brian and I was like, I would do it. And he's like, I would too. And it was game over. Wow. So, I think when your life is open to God of, like, here I am, send me, no matter what it looks like, he'll do it. Yeah. And then you just never know. And then it gets crazy and you cry a lot.
I love it.
It's so beautiful. These 2 little boys changed our life and made our family closer. And oh gosh, it's ridiculous.
I love it. What I love about you is that I've actually talked to you about the mothers of those kids, and that you see the mission of adoption so much wider than even your immediate family. I think that's a testimony to who you are and what you like, and I love that. Okay, which leads me to my next question, because I think when I think about you, Jenn, I think about authentic creativity. When I watch your life, everything that you create seems to come from the very centre of who you are, and whether it's retreats or projects or worship songs or whatever you're working on, somehow it reflects you and embodies who you are. I see you in everything you create. So can you tell me, I love it. I actually, like, Rich and I were sitting at the bench last night talking about the things that we've witnessed you making, and just going, you just make beautiful things everywhere you go. So then how have you discovered...
Chill out.
So my question sits around, how have you discovered your own unique voice, and what have you learned about being true to who you are?
Great. When I was a little girl, my friend was the good singer, and I was just the backup singer and the piano player. And my confidence in God really grew as I learned his voice, as I learned his word, and I went after what I was passionate about. So I think it was just over time.
Have you ever not liked your gifting? Have you ever wished you were something else?
Yeah, for sure. I think as a creative, I think that it's more of on a leadership level. I would say that's where the weight comes from, is how to lead and also be a creative is something that I'm still learning, because leadership and running something like Bethel Music as a movement, it's flipping crazy and there's so many moving parts. So I actually am looking forward in 2022 to having more discipline in creating and musically. I spent last year doing a book. I'm always doing a little bit of something, but for me, I have to learn to steward my creativity a little bit better, because all the leadership responsibilities seem to tip the scale. And I feel the Lord asking me to kind of be better at having.
I hear that a lot from creatives, that they start as makers and artisans, and then they become leaders, and then they lose what they feel like God's actually trusted them with. And they've got to carve out space for that expression.
Yes. I did last week write a really fiery love song that I'm actually...
As in, to God or to Brian?
With my life, to Brian. It's so good. It's so good. It's literally like, I won't ruin it, but
no, come on. So your favorite line from it. Just give us your favorite line.
Oh, it's in my notebook. It's something like, let's just hold hands. Oh gosh, what is it? It's something about, like, my mind is blank right now, but like, words won't help us tonight. It's this whole concept about like, if we keep talking, we're just going to fight. So let's just hold hands. And it's
is that really where you're at the moment?
Oh yeah, it's a live one. It's a live one. Yeah,
I love that. Okay,
like, so and the tagline is, it's not worth fighting about, it's worth it's our love that's worth fighting for, is the tagline of it.
Okay, that's beautiful. As much as you say there's a tension between the leadership and the creativity, I think you create all the time without even realizing that you're doing it. So in this past season, what is it you put your hand to that you're most proud of?
In the COVID wildness of 2020, 2021, is when God spoke to us right before March, when, COVID went wild. God spoke to us to adopt again. He actually spoke to our children, who talked to us. And then we, checked with God, and he said, yeah, I think that's a great idea. So we adopted a baby, during that time. So we were in adoption process. So COVID kind of didn't feel real for us for the first year, honestly, because we were in like adoption papers, into flying to get him, into having a newborn. So, you're kind of just in newborn phase. But also having that downtime, we kind of took it as a sabbatical. And that's when I wrote the book that is about to come out. It's coming out in November. So I don't think that if the world hadn't stopped, I don't know if I would have written a book in maybe 10 years.
You wrote a book. What do you mean you wrote a book? Tell me about, what are you talking about?
I'm so excited. So it's my first book, and it's a coffee table book.
Okay,
and,
hold on. You've dreamt about this book for how many years? How long have you dreamt this for?
I can't even, for so long. I mean, at least 15 years at least.
Yeah, right.
So, I mean, since I was a little girl, I always felt like one day I would write. So this is my first, and I'm so excited. It was a wild learning process, but it's a picture book. So there's over 200 pictures, beautiful photos by my best friend, Heather Armstrong, who you love as well.
Yep.
Yeah. And so it's just beautiful pictures of our kids and our home and our life and what we do, and just kind of our whole life in a book. But it's really centered around following the Holy Spirit and health and order and hosting and loving people. It's kind of like the themes of my life. I was going to title it something, and I was going to title it Lovely or Intentional or something, but the team said all things lovely is really kind of capturing all the different parts of your life. So,
okay, you have a really deep theology of hospitality that plays right into this book, right?
Yes. One of my favorite parts about Jesus, which you don't hear a lot, is that he went to people's homes to eat with them.
Right.
And just the power of that. Like, he liked to eat with his friends, and he liked to eat with people. And so coming and welcoming people into your home, I think that, that's just such a special superpower that everybody can do. Like, it doesn't take money. It doesn't take,
right.
anything extravagant, but loving people and sharing them. Jesus used that example to break bread and to eat together. So many times we can just work, but just stopping to be together and eat together and enjoy each other, I think is so powerful.
So are there recipes in your book?
You know it.
I asked that because I think there was a time where I asked for your chocolate cake recipe that I talked about at the start of this, and you said to me, one day you'll be able to get this in my book. And you laughed. And I went, is it in the book?
It isn't, I don't think.
Are you serious?
I had to narrow it down. I think there's my publisher wants me to do a cookbook. So I think there's I don't know, maybe 10 recipes in there. Right. I don't even remember, but it will be coming. But it didn't make the book because these are more healthy recipes than. But my pancakes are in there.
Oh yes, good. Okay. How did writing a book differ to writing songs? How's that creative process been different for you?
I think that songs for me really come inspirational. So I'll just have an idea or I'll hear a melody. So some people craft really well. They can just go with a blank drawing board, and that's hard for me. I have to be inspired or hear something. So sitting down to write, I kind of locked myself literally in my closet. And
Are you serious?
Brian literally, yeah. I locked myself in my closet, and then Brian kept all the kids, just doing all the things. And I just kind of wrote my heart, and it really is our life story in a big way. It's the story of the remodel of our house. It's the story of our kids, our family, our ministry, our marriage. So it's definitely got a lot. It's power packed with topics.
And your aim for it? If you had one hope about this project, what would it be?
I start the book off by saying that my heart and dream for the book is that people would fall in love with Jesus and know him better, and that they'd reflect and magnify him in all that they say and do because of it. And that's my heart, is that emotionally, physically, and spiritually, that we would be connected to the Lord and his word, and that our life would reflect it, from loving people and our family to the church, who that I'm fired up about. The church, the capital C. I just literally just lose my mind over what God's up to with what he's doing in the church. And so, you definitely get kind of that whole message.
Ben Fielding wanted me to ask you, he goes, can you ask? He loves you with his whole heart. He goes, do you reckon that you can just ask Jenn how they deal with people leaving all the time and the transient nature of community? And I went, I don't know that I can ask her that one, because I feel like that's too raw.
No, you can ask me anything, you know that. And the answer is, it breaks my heart all day long, every day. And I constantly am trying to figure out if it's something we're doing wrong or if it's something we're born for. And I think it's somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
I do. I think that because we still are even though people, have moved and changed, you're always taking pillars, I would just think of pillars out of what you've built, and then you have to re-raise up, and it's exhausting, honestly. But when you can 30,000 foot view it, and you look at the capital C church, and you see all the people that they also love Jesus, the thing is that it's so much work and it's exhausting. Yeah. But all of the people who have come through and are doing other things, we love them so much. They're doing incredible things for God, and we're still close, I think.
What I was laughing at, because I knew that question was in the back of my head while I was talking to you, and you talked about, here I am, send me, my answer's yes before you even ask. And I went, maybe actually part of the mandate is to release people and say yes to them going even before God's asked.
100%. And I think that early on, God pried my hands off of the dream of wanting to do things together, and being able to let people, come through for as long as they need and then go. But it's so hard. It really is just so difficult. It's difficult on a practical level. It's different on my heart as a spiritual mama, even though some of these guys are my age or older. It's still so hard for me because I adore them so much. So I want to do it together. So it's the worst is what it is. It's the absolute worst.
I think when you think you're building something together, right, and then there's a change of season, you're like, aren't we building this together? Oh, okay.
I know. And I think that God's taught me a lot by remodeling my house for 9 years.
Right.
So
okay, what did he teach you?
just to constantly rebuild and to make sure you can change anything. But if your foundation's faulty, then you're just absolutely, it's pointless. It's all pointless if your foundation's faulty. You can build the most beautiful things. So foundation, I would say that would be the biggest one. But yeah, I just think that, gosh, that's a book in itself. But that's a lot of the remodel stuff I wrote about in the book because there was so many learning lessons through it spiritually. Like the parallels of building Bethel Music and building this house were so straight. Even from the beginning, like when before we even got the house, before we were in escrow, the house was in shambles, like when we looked at it before we bought it. And I talked about it in the book, but we got a prophetic word about how our hearts were dormant, Brian, especially like dormant and overgrown and not doing well, really. And kind of this lady described the current situation as a house that was the house that she had no idea we were in escrow over. And long story short, we got healing. And as soon as we did, escrow closed and the remodel process started. And it has been a building remodel journey that has been a spiritual parallel that God has clearly orchestrated, unfortunately, because it was great.
But now it's beautiful, right?
Now it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And it's all in the book. All the pictures, I think almost every room in the house is in the book. All my drawers and cupboards, my love of organization.
Oh, shut up. No, your kitchen cupboards put us all to shame.
My spice drawer is the sexiest spice drawer you've ever seen.
No.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, Jenn Johnson, I am out of time. And I love that that's where you end because I actually think of all the themes of your life, that is the theme that Jesus has captivated your heart, and everything that you have and everything that you do comes from a place where you seek to honour him. And so, like, our creative community are so grateful for your example. We are so grateful for like the new album and the songs that are coming out of Bethel Music. Like I think Send Me, we have listened to over and over and over at team night and all sorts of places. I think we have sobbed with you and alongside you. I am grateful for things like All Things Lovely that actually I think will inspire creatives with beauty. And I think that is such an incredible gift to the body of Christ. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your life. Thank you for your friendship. And thank you for your creativity.
I love you so much. I love you all. Hillsong, I love you.
And we love you too. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Mwah.
Love you.
Bye.